Over 70% of Americans are living below the poverty line per a bombshell new report. The government calls you middle class, but the middle class is actually undergoing an extinction level event. What happened? How did we get here? What does the data say? Will it get better? Some fresh data and analysis ahead. So if you saw yesterday's video building on this super viral post by Mike Green, don't worry. We will go through it very briefly. We will also show some fresh data and analysis, some new charts, and dive even deeper. So to start with, Mike Green points out that the poverty line, when it was initially established, was supposed to be the absolute minimum. Families spent about a third of their income on food. Therefore, the inverse of that was everything else. That was how the poverty line was initially developed. And of course, it is not possible to measure how much is enough, only how much is too little. So remember, it is supposed to be the absolute minimum. But then what happened? Everything changed. Household spending patterns changed. Housing costs, for example, exploded. So as we can see over here on the right, the average home price just exploded higher relative to the real purchasing power of the average hourly wage, increasing 54% faster just in the past 6 years over the real purchasing power of the average hourly wage. Going back to 2007, the average home price has outpaced the real purchasing power of wages by 176%. Of course, healthcare also exploded higher, childcare as well, which we will go into in a second. Now, here's zooming in a bit on the home issue, the housing issue. So first, we can see the average home priced in ounces of gold is actually 84% cheaper over the past 25 years. Now, what does that mean? That means the issue is not the homes are too expensive or too valuable. In fact, in gold terms, they are actually losing value. They are not keeping up with the price of gold. What this indicates is that those sky-high housing costs are actually an issue with the denominator. Remember, housing is a US dollar-denominated asset. Now, in red, we see the average annual interest exploded higher, increasing more than 3x just in the past 5 or 6 years. Now, zooming in a bit here on the kind of sample budget, he establishes that the new line, the absolute minimum, is $136,000 per year, and he shows his work over there. Over on the right, we can see the purchasing power of personal income has been plummeting over the past 25 years. So declining 34% in the past 25 years if you use personal income. If you use the average hourly wage, it has declined by 42%. What good is personal income going up at 5% per year if the money supply is going up at 20% per year? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, another issue is that personal income fell off a cliff. Here we can see a very clear logarithmic trend from 1957 to 1990. Then something started to break. Well, if personal income had kept up with that trend, it would be $99 trillion per year higher, and that would work out to an extra $580,000 per working adult per year. If personal income had kept up with this other trend line that we can see here from 1980 to 2000, personal income would be $20 trillion per year higher, working out to an extra $125,000 per working adult per year. Now, here he goes through the second earner trap, which is that you need a second income nowadays to raise a family. However, then you trigger a child care expense because now you have two parents working. It used to be, of course, one parent. Only one parent would work. The other one would take care of the kids. Well, this on the left, he goes through that second earner trap and shows that actually you end up just paying a stranger to watch your kid. That second income goes almost entirely just to childcare. Childcare expenses obviously exploding higher. Over on the right, we can see that real inflation is far, far higher than official inflation. That is the percentage change since 1963 of the CPI index relative to the money supply. Since 1963, the money supply has grown 7.5 times faster than the official government data would suggest, that CPI index. Now, over here, he rebukes. It is not just expensive cities, and he works out the math over there on the left. I would also recommend everyone read Are You an American?, his other article, which is also excellent. So over on the right, what we can see is that homeowner equity those boomers that own a home, that equity has outpaced wages, both on a per capita basis and an aggregate basis. So, homeowner equity has grown over 240% faster than total civilian wages. Per capita, it's grown actually 680% faster. Now, over here on the left, he goes through hedonic adjustments. Well, yeah, but you have a supercomputer in your pocket. He points out you need that supercomputer just to log into your bank, just to do your kids' homework. Everything is online. You need home broadband. You need a laptop. And so he works out the hedonic adjustment argument there over on the left, points out, by the way, healthcare, 14x inflation. Now, over on the right, we see part of the issue here, which is that labor share of income, which is the technical term for total wages as a share of GDP, has been plummeting going back to 1964. It really accelerated in 1980. However, the net worth of the top 1% as a share of GDP has doubled. It has gone from about 80% to about 170%, meaning the net worth of the top 1% has grown faster than the overall US economy. So something broke, as we established earlier in this video. Here we can see part of what broke. So up on the top, I originally posted this, by the way, about a year ago, and tagged Mike Green and asked him to fact check my work. Up here on the right, we have kind of the real economy. So we have money velocity, labor force participation rate, purchasing power of personal income. It was all going up from 1950 up until the late 1990s. Then something broke and they started to decline. The real economy. Well, back here, if we look at federal government debt as a share of GDP, or corporate profits as a share of GDP, or the S&P 500 financial assets as a share of GDP, they all underperformed as the real economy outperformed. And then as the real economy broke in 2000, something had to step in to fill the gap. What was it? It was government debt, it was corporate profits, and it was financial assets like the equity market, all growing far, far, far faster than the overall US economy. Now, over here on the left, we're zooming in on some of the major issues with kind of the barbell approach here. So if you're lower income, you get subsidies. If you're upper income, of course, none of this matters. He actually goes through and points out that if you get a raise from, say, $45,000, you get a $10,000 per year income gain, you actually end up losing money because now that the Medicaid eligibility goes away. He also talks about the child care trap at $65,000 per year. So he points out that if you're middle class, you are actually worse off than if you are lower class. He goes through the math there over on the left. Now, over on the right, I want to point out the M0 money supply, the monetary base, and the gold dollar price, of course, tracking monetary debasement over long periods of time. We can see they're roughly in line at about 10,000% change since 1963. Well, look at the average hourly wage in dollar terms. It has only grown 1,100%. If wages had kept up with the gold or the monetary base, the average hourly wage would be over $300 per hour. That actual inflation. Now, over on the left, he provides a proof of concept when a lot of the cost of participation was removed in 2020. And of course, people finally felt like they were middle class again. So he goes through that over there on the left. Over on the right, this will blow your mind. So compared to the average hourly wage, the S&P 500 has grown 7 times faster going back to 1964 when the poverty line was created. GDP, or the economic output for the U.S. economy, has grown almost 4 times faster, 3.8 times faster. If the average hourly wage had kept up with GDP, the average hourly wage would be $120 per hour. If it had kept up with the stock market, it would be $230 per hour. Now, remember this prior slide here, if wages had kept up with gold or the monetary base, that M0, the average hourly wage would be $300 per hour. So you couple that with, of course, the personal income slide that we were going through showing something clearly broke. And of course, we established here kind of what happened, which is labor share of income started to decline, corporate profits, top 1% net worth as a share of GDP, those all started to go up again, meaning they are increasing faster than GDP. Meanwhile, the real economy is slowly dying, undergoing an extinction level event. So, anyways, hopefully that was helpful. I would highly recommend everyone go check out his article, yesigiveafig.com. Absolutely amazing article by Mike Green. Very brilliant guy. Anyways, hopefully that was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one.